It was fascinating listening to Chris. I've taken lots and lots of notes, at least 2 pages here. And partly because I need a reminder of some of the great things he was saying, but also so that I can look back at it and see how many links there are that are very similar to our own approach. And we've adopted a slightly different stance on all of the things that Chris mentioned. So I think for anybody listening or watching this in the future, between the two of us, I think you're going to get a really good idea of what might be a blueprint for development in the foundation phase. So a big thank you to Chris. You've raised some really great points that I've probably got as many questions as the people listening in, but I've had more of a narrow focus. We are a much bigger country than Belgium, and I think in some ways it's an advantage, in other ways it's a disadvantage. So I think what Chris has been able to implement is absolutely perfect if you've got a pathway that starts very, very early and has as a means of taking those players through it so that they understand what is required at the national team level. I think it's a great pathway, and all of the formats fit in along that journey. We haven't got a specific way of playing as a national team. We like 4-3-3, but we also want the flexibility to change. So actually starting our youngest players off with a very specific formation, such as the single triangle, the double triangle, then the diamonds, and how it progresses through the different formats, that wasn't our approach. But what we were criticised as not having was a real detailed blueprint for development. And so our DNA work is that blueprint that we've now taken out to the whole game, but particularly the grassroots game. So although I've got a narrower focus, I think a lot of it will complement what Chris has already mentioned. So Chris used different words, but our main mantra is that love is a better teacher than a sense of duty. So we too want young children, young people to fall in love with not just football, but with being physically active and the enjoyment and the social aspects and the friendships that can develop as a result of that kind of environment. So this is our non-negotiable bottom line. The environments that we create must embrace this approach, that for the very young, we have to enable them to fall in love with the game. We began to identify certain key headlines that we could begin to communicate out to the whole game. And the one that's probably received the most attention is this one. We had a real tradition of coaches, parents, other adults who are involved with our youngest players having a mantra of kicking the ball away and encouraging the children to kick it away, getting rid of it, boot it away. And we wanted to change this mindset to another thing. So we introduced this idea of encouraging the children to stay on the ball for a lot longer. The reason I say it was contentious is because it was interpreted by different people in so many different ways. So we began to clarify what exactly this would mean. So staying on the ball is all of these things. And although they're in no priority order, there's really 3 things that we wanted to address, or certainly to challenge. It was felt, even with our youngest players, that the only way that your team could keep possession of the ball was by passing it. Well, each individual player, if they have better individual technique and capability, can keep possession for your team as an individual without sharing it. And I think this important first step was missed out. Chris mentioned about enabling children or encouraging children to dribble before they pass. This is exactly what this means. staying on the ball yourself is a great way to keep possession for your team. So that means there is more time on the ball for each individual player. That adds to the enjoyment, adds to the engagement, builds that real technical base that we all want all children to have, so that they enjoy the game more. And then that pays benefits because they want to play the game and stay involved with the game for so much longer. This was the most contentious issue, in that we had to communicate that for every individual possession and dribble and time on the ball, always involved a decision. So knowing when to share is a really important part of staying on the ball and having that individual possession. We also wanted the players to look for more penetration. So this was our way of beginning to introduce the principles of the game. And at the moment, we've got keeping possession, creating space, supporting players as the principles. We wanted to move penetration higher up the pecking order. So being able to penetrate with passes, dribbles, traveling with the ball, and score goals, we wanted to say that's what the game is about. It's the most exciting part, and it's what we want the children to experience from a very young age. So I've got a short video clip here that really sent out a message challenging this mantra of play the way you face, play the easy ball, or even get rid of it. We want players to enjoy being in possession. So even if they are under pressure and maybe facing the wrong way, we want them to develop the skills that they can get out of those situations themselves, as well as knowing that they can pass it at a later stage. So here's the video. I hope. Yes, here we go. So this player's facing the wrong way, but he has a means of getting out of that situation. This player's under pressure, but he's got the technical ability to feel confident and comfortable, even though there's an opponent really pressing down and trying to put him under pressure to take the ball off him. This is the best clip, because I think most coaches would be saying to this player, you need to pass it. Well, actually, he doesn't until the right time. So staying on the ball for us, being comfortable under pressure, and developing the awareness of where your opponents are, your teammates are, and having a huge technical capability to get out of any situation is what our DNA in the foundation phase is looking to do. So this idea of penetration and going forward and being attacking and exciting runs through our whole DNA. In the past, players would have been encouraged to put the ball out, but we're saying we don't want you to do that anymore. Let's see what other possibilities present. So this player is facing his own goal, he's under pressure, but he's comfortable and confident enough to try to play his way out. And young players, without any encouragement, will still try to pass the ball. But we need them to have that individual capability so that they can create some magic themselves. So the boy in orange who eventually picks the ball up likes to defend. But we also need to develop the capacity for him to play in the moment and really try to do something creative and exciting himself. So in saying what staying on the ball was, we tried to make it even clearer by saying staying on the ball is not. So there was a perception that the FA and the foundation phase DNA was just encouraging children to be ball greedy, dribbling until you lose it, not really being aware of your teammates, and just really happy that you're losing possession, even though you've had a nice time for a few seconds on the ball. It couldn't be further from the truth. But when you start this process in the foundation phase, this is what it might look like, because the children can't do it proficiently and effectively at the moment. So as coaches, we have to hold our nerve while the players get used to this different approach and develop their technical abilities. So it may look as though the players are greedy or not willing to share it, but what we're trying to get them to buy into is this individual time on the ball and this ability to develop your own individual technical ability as high as possible. And we needed to do this for a very good reason, because we knew exactly what was going to follow on from this. Because once you've got players who are really comfortable on the ball and can stay on it under pressure, have the ability to turn and twist out of pressure, then we can then begin to establish not just individual techniques, but individual tactics. And these will develop from a player who's so comfortable in possession that he's now able to stay on the ball, to attract opponents to him, or to entice opponents out of position, so that they can change the situations in games. So how do you do that? You can begin to travel into spaces on the pitch. This will change your options and your decisions. It will also give your teammates a chance to take up different positions as well, and hopefully more threatening positions. As you're traveling with the ball, you can add more disguise, more deception, more feints to your actions on the ball to further confuse and disrupt and disorganize the defense. If all of your cognitive energy is spent on the ball, it's really difficult to scan and look around to assess where your opponents are. But if you're really comfortable in possession, you can then release some of that cognitive capacity to start looking at what the next decision and what the next options might be. And we obviously want those to be forward thinking, forward moving, and forward playing, so that we can really begin to penetrate more. So once we've established the individual techniques and players are really comfortable staying on the ball for longer, that's when we can begin to do some real damage, when we develop the individual techniques that come once you're very, very comfortable in possession. So Chris mentioned how they've got a very structured approach about the formats grow with the child and get bigger and include more players as the players get older. We firmly believe that these formats, these smaller formats, are the building blocks of the 11v11 game. And we shouldn't be in a rush to move the players through these smaller formats just so that we can say they are now playing 11v11 and it's now the real game. All of these smaller formats are the real game. They include all of the elements of the big 11-a-side game. And it's a chance for us to really hone and refine and establish all of these individual techniques and individual tactics within numbers that are manageable for the developing and maturing child. So we want to make sure that all of those individual capabilities can be expressed within 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s before we move them into bigger units and obviously bigger teams. So that's our plan. It's slightly different to Chris's, but I think it's every bit as detailed, even though I've just looked at a very specific focus today. So I hope that helps clarify what the next phase of our foundation phase DNA is about. And I hope it's going to help the coaches who are listening in. Thanks, Sergio and Chris, for listening.
Thanks a million, Pete.